That Champions Cup major was absolutely incredible to watch. It was so much fun watching FPO and MPO. Disc golf is just in such a good spot professionally right now. It is so much fun to watch. I know I enjoyed watching the coverage this past week. I hope you enjoyed it too. I am so excited to talk about the Champions Cup and so many other disc golf things with you. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Hey everybody, what is up? It's Antonio. Welcome back to episode 9 here of Teach Play Disc Golf, a Gladiator Disc Golf podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. There are a lot of things that I have planned to talk about, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So let's go ahead and let's run through the show so that you guys can see what we're talking about. So we're first going to talk about Ricky Wysocki. I know he didn't play the Champions Cup, but there are some interesting things to talk about. He's posted about some things on social media, so we're going to touch on that a little bit. We're going to talk about Kristin Tattar, some of the young guns that showed up at Champions Cup, just awesome stuff there. We're going to discuss something that I actually posted about on the day I'm recording this. I posted about it on Instagram and on YouTube about building a big bag or a small bag. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I want to share something that I had today as a disc golf experience. I had a disc golf win today. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. The disc golf skill we're going to talk about is something that originates with the Champions Cup, and that's going to be throwing putters. So we'll talk about that. Following that, we'll go right into the tournament preview. I don't have a disc review again. Sorry about that. Just haven't had a chance to really test anything new yet. But disc reviews will come back as I'm testing some more discs and just getting comfortable with them to the point where I feel confident enough to review them and share my thoughts with you. So we'll go and we'll review the Champions Cup as a whole, and then we will preview the Jonesboro Open. I am so excited to talk about that. It's a super fun tournament. So let's go ahead and let's get started talking about Ricky. Now, if you're unaware, Ricky posted on social media about last week. This is, right before the Championship Cup, the Champions Cup. Championship, it's what he wrote in his Instagram caption on the post. But so he starts it off and he says update. So I'm just going to read this to you guys and I'll put it up here on the screen too. As many of you have heard, I had to drop out of the Champions Cup this week due to complications with my Lyme disease. It's been a battle all year trying to will my body back to health, and unfortunately, I'm going to be taking some more time off from the season to see some of the best specialists for Lyme disease and try to tackle this issue head on. I've tried many times to play through the pain, and it's reached a point where I need to cut myself off from having disc golf to regain the physical strength and mobility moving forward. These next 2 weeks, I'll be spending my time down in Clearwater, Florida for my rehab process. Let's hope for the best and keep fighting and get back out on the course. And then he goes on and thanks a couple people. This is both like new news and also not new news. One of the first episodes actually on this show, I discussed Ricky Wysocki not playing. It was, I think, the Disc Golf Pro Tour All-Stars. He didn't participate in that. He missed the first few events. I was asking the question, are we going to see Ricky? Will he ever be the same? And then he came and started playing a few rounds, finished top 10, I think, in both of the events, the major events that he played. But now he goes and posts this status. And like I said in that first episode, I'm not going to dive into like whether or not I think he handled it correctly. That happened 2-3 years ago at this point. It's over and done with. But I will say it is a shame. I'll just repeat this from that episode. It is a shame that Ricky is not healthy enough to play. And disc golf is in a really good spot when Ricky is playing. It's in a great spot right now, but having Ricky competing just makes disc golf even more special. He is just such a phenomenal disc golfer and so good that it just, thinking about the competition we have right now and now throw Ricky Wysocki into the mix. I mean, just think about that for a second. And it is just going to be something special when he returns. Now, this is reading between the lines. All right, this is reading between the lines. We don't have a timetable for his return. He didn't give us anything like that. We know he has spent the last week, and he's going to spend another week in Clearwater, Florida, which ironically enough is like 30 minutes away from where I went to college. So I'm pretty familiar with the area. And we know he's spending 2 weeks off not playing. It sounds like he's going to spend even more time not playing. So we knew that this injury illness, I'm not quite sure what to call it because it's part illness, part injury, with mobility and that kind of thing. So we'll just call it an injury illness here. We know that he was having issues over the last few years. We know that he's obviously been having issues this year. But I almost wonder if maybe he had downplayed some of it, not wanting to make any rash decision or not wanting to come across as not being able to push through any pain. And I think at this point, I think all rational disc golfers want Ricky to get healthy, want Ricky to be able to compete. And so if that means that he's going to take a few months off, which is what it sounds like to me. To me, reading that Instagram caption, that sounds like somebody who is getting ready to take a few months off of disc golf, like even throwing. And so that being said, this has some other major implications for the disc golf season. Ricky is probably not going to win Worlds. He may not even compete in Worlds. I believe it's in the summer again. I'm drawing a blank on when. I want to say like June or July, but I could be wrong about that. But it doesn't sound like, it's nearly May. We're at the end of April. If, let's say, Worlds is in June or July, there's no way he's going to be in disc golf shape after having taken off what I'm assuming to be at least a month or two and then compete and win a world championship. Now, crazy things have happened in sports. Crazier things have happened in sports. But I just don't think that's realistic, especially as someone who has only been able to compete for the first few events or some of the first few events. So it's a shame that we're not going to see him competing on some of the biggest stages. It's a shame that we're not going to see him much of this year. I really hope he gets healthy soon. I really hope that even if he has to take this season off, that means that he has the health and the preventative maintenance and care that he can continue to compete next year and next season and in the future. It would be a shame if Lyme disease prevents him from ever being able to really fully tour again. It's almost, so some of you may know who this is, Will Schusterick. Now, I started following disc golf and playing disc golf in 2018. And, and how many people have joined since I joined? Over like 150,000 players have joined the PDGA. So that's obviously not even how many have started since I joined. And so at this point, I feel like an old head, but I know I'm not, but I feel like it. And I remember at that point, like Will Schusterick wasn't even playing a whole lot. So I had, this like hardly any idea who this was. And so for those of you who are fairly new, you may be not knowing like who I'm talking about at all. But if I remember correctly, Will Schusterick was, I think, dealing with some injuries as well in his career. And that kind of prevented him from being able to tour all the time. He then got married, and a few years ago they had a son, and his son has had some health complications. And so just a series of things. And I'm scared to think that possibly like the same thing that happened to Will with injuries. It wasn't Lyme disease. I think it was his shoulder, which is why there's some videos of Will like throwing lefty now so that he can be able to compete. Seeing that possibly happen to Ricky is sad, because Will, should still be touring. If it wasn't for injuries, he probably would have won some major championships, maybe even be a world champion. And that's more than likely not going to ever happen. And I know Ricky's already won 2 world championships, but like I've said, it's great to see him out competing. He is still so young. And so I just hope that this Lyme disease doesn't impact his ability to tour and play. And I saw, tied to that, an actually really interesting headline. I think it was Iceberg TV, but I could be wrong. I don't want to be calling out the wrong people, but it was just a thumbnail. I didn't watch the video. It was just the title and the thumbnail. But basically, somebody on YouTube talked about how Ricky and Dynamic Disc, they might have just completely wasted, the biggest waste of money or something like that. And I don't have all the context. I didn't watch the video, didn't have a chance to watch it. So just going off of the title, off of the thumbnail, I don't think it's fair to say to Dynamic Discs that it's a waste of money or anything like that. That might have been the conclusion that the person who made the video came to as well. But I'm just reacting off that thumbnail and title. That's not really fair, because going into that deal, Ricky was playing really, really well. So that's not fair to say that Dynamic Disc wasted money. I still think it's hilarious that Ricky won his signing bonus in Bitcoin. Yeah, go figure. So that's pretty funny. But that's what I wanted to just touch on with Ricky Wysocki and some of the updates there with that. It's a really unfortunate circumstance, and I hope that he gets well soon. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about a couple players from Champions Cup. We'll just go ahead and talk about Kristin Tattar. I think it's abundantly clear at this point that she is the best player in FPO for the last 2 seasons. I think, I'm not a betting man, but I would assume that she is the betting favorite to win Worlds in FPO. And she's made a good case for that. She is just absolutely dominated. I think she won by 12 strokes at Champions Cup. And I remember just checking in on you this because I watched the first 3 rounds. But I'll be honest, I had no interest in watching the 4th round because I was like, she's already up 10 strokes or something going into the final round. And so it's just one of those, unless all of a sudden I'm checking UDisc and I'm seeing she's crumbling or something, then I'm like, what is going on? I want to watch this. I was not going to spend 4 hours watching her win after she basically won it after round 2, technically you could argue, but definitely after round 3 with her ginormous lead. But Kristin is just on a completely different level right now than the rest of the FPO field. And I've talked a lot about the FPO field on this podcast, and it's been such a joy to watch. And when we talk about Kristin, I want to also make it clear, the FPO field as a division, as a whole, is playing so well this season. And it's almost like to their detriment that Kristin is just slaughtering the competition in a lot of the rounds. She's just so much more consistent. She's always at the top, always on the lead card. Even though she's not winning every tournament by double digits, she's just consistently there. The other 3 players on the lead card fluctuate. The top 5, top 7, top 10, they fluctuate a good bit. You have Owen Scoggins constantly in the mix, Ella Hansen in the mix, and a few other players, but it's just Kristin's always up there. And I think just that consistency is phenomenal. Obviously, she didn't, in every Disc Golf Pro Tour major event last season, she finished on the podium, which is incredible to just think about every podium finish. But it's almost that overshadows just how good the FPO field is this year. There are more women who are coming up through the ranks and playing really well and really entering tour life and just doing awesome stuff on tour. They're just being overshadowed. So I wanted to, bring that to light and hey, if you're not watching FPO coverage, I encourage you to watch it, not just to watch Kristin, because there's a lot that we can learn from her as amateurs, just watching her play. And I'm sure pros are learning from her too. But there are so many exciting players in the FPO division that I want to encourage you to watch them because they're awesome. We can still learn from them, even though they may not be on Kristin's level, but still just awesome. I want to encourage you guys to check that out. That being said, on my Discord channel, by the way, link in the description if you want to join the Discord server. We talked a couple days ago about Kristin possibly being the first 1,000 rated FPO player. Now, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly. But Paige Pierce came the closest, I think. She was like 999 or 997. And I really thought she was going to do it. She's had a long and illustrious career so far. But I really thought at that point she was going to do it. And then she just didn't, and her rating has dropped since then. But definitely Kristin is on pace to do that. She's just playing so well. One of the guys in my Discord was just talking. It was like, yeah, every round from this past tournament at Champions Cup, I think was like 10-10 rated or higher. And so she's definitely stacking these 1,000 rated rounds. And it's just incredible to watch. On the MPO side of Champions Cup, we had a really, really cool tournament. So many young players stepping up and dominating the course. I mean, a lot of people at this point know who Silas Schultz is because of his Instagram videos and everything, and just how well done those are. But I mean, if people didn't know about him before, they know about him now. He played so well. He was one of the 3 players, I think, to tie the course record at -12. And he just had a couple unfortunate holes in the 3rd and 4th round that kept him from being on lead card and from potentially stealing the tournament from Isaac. So really, really cool to see that. Obviously, Isaac Robinson was just electric. From the start of the tournament to the very end, he was in the lead or in share of the lead, command of the lead. It was just incredible to watch, and just his poise for such a young player. And, I think that it was just really cool watching him compete under pressure, because I think about times where I'm like, ooh, I have 2 birdies in a row, or ooh, I have 3 birdies in a row, or it's like, it's been a couple days or a few weeks maybe since I've last played, and I have this birdie putt, and it's like feeling the nerves. And it's just one of those things where I feel like for most players, it's like you wonder when your luck is gonna run out. And I just kept sitting there watching Isaac play, and I was just like, man, when is his luck going to run out? Not that he wasn't playing well. He did have several lucky breaks. And I think, I was watching Joe Miss for MPO coverage. I couldn't watch the live. Jeremy Coling and Paul Ulibarri were talking about like every winner is playing well, but they also get some pretty lucky breaks. And Isaac definitely had those. But it was just one of those things where he was just on point the entire tournament, and it was definitely unique. And it was almost in a sense like hard to watch, because it was just like, how are you not making any mistakes? How are you doing this so flawlessly? Every drive, every approach, every fairway shot, every putt, with such commitment, with such accuracy. Really, really cool to watch. But it was almost like, man, why can't I be like that? What's it gotta take for me to have that kind of level of confidence? And we watch a player like that, and that's just years of reps, practice. A couple episodes ago, I talked about the law of thirds. You're gonna have great days, good days, bad days, or good days, okay days, bad days, however you want to view it. And learning to take your lumps when they happen and learning from them, and also celebrating your good days, but not getting too high and mighty. And you want this idea, the law of thirds, is that those three categories all happen the same amount of time. And if you have good days as often as you have okay days, as often as you have bad days, that basically means that you are working on new skills, that you're improving, that you're going through growing pains. And that is how you get to where these pros are, FPO and MPO. That is how you get to where they are. It is just really special, a really special treat to be watching. And I think if anything, we have learned that professional disc golf is in a really good place. Like, we knew that disc golf as a whole at this point isn't going anywhere. There's a lot of people playing it from the pandemic and the spike that happened there. But just professional disc golf is just growing, and it's really exciting to watch. You have a lot of young players who 3-4 years ago couldn't physically tour because they were maybe in high school or middle school, and now they're touring. And it's just incredible the skill that is coming with these kids who are getting introduced to disc golf at a much, much younger age. I want to go ahead now and talk about building a bag, but not in the sense of, what discs you're putting in your bag. I want to focus more on big bag, small bag type deal. This thought is fresh on my mind because about a week ago, I was able to pick up a really small bag for disc golf, and it really made me think about the discs I was throwing. And so when I talk about big bag, I'm not talking about a bag that maybe holds 15 or 20 discs max. I'm talking about bags that, like, if you have nothing else in them, can hold up to like 40 discs. Or, the average player is putting 25, 30, 35 discs in there, really stacking it, just these big disc golf bags. And when I say small disc golf bags, I'm talking like discs that at max, bags that at max capacity can hold 15 discs. But chances are you're holding less. You're bagging 8, maybe 10, maybe 12. And so these are the two worlds that I'm comparing. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, there is nothing wrong bagging either bag. But I do think that each bag has some pros and cons. And I would encourage everyone to practice and spend significant amount of time, like a couple months, working with bags of different sizes this way. And here's why. So let's talk about big bags first. Obviously, big bags, you can carry a lot more discs. You can carry there's a lot of storage, especially for tournaments, which makes it great. But we want to focus here just on discs instead. Everybody has different things they want to carry. I'm not focusing on that. Let's focus on the discs. So with a big bag, you can carry a lot, the 25, 30, 35, 40 plus discs in some of these bags. And it's one of those things where it's like, why would someone need that many? Well, there's quite a few reasons. First off, there are quite a few pros that carry a lot of discs. When you have a lot of discs in the bag like that, most times you have a disc in there for a very specific shot. And so that's one of the benefits of having a big bag, is that when you find a disc that does one or two things really well for you, and you like it for that, you have space for it, and you never have to throw it unless you need that specific shot. And I think that is really beneficial because it gives a player confidence that they can execute every shot. If it's like, okay, this is my backhand Anheuser disc, my flat to turnover, my hyzer disc, my thumber, a roller disc, a utility driver, etc. You can kind of build out your putters, your mids, your drivers from fairway to control to distance, build them out that way and really have every shot understable to neutral to overstable. So you have a lot of flexibility, and that's a great way for a lot of players to really help them cover their shots. Another thing is that I don't do this. I don't build my bag this way when I'm choosing which discs, but some players are like, I want to throw one way and one way only. That's either like flat, a little bit of hyzer or a little bit of anhyzer, whatever their preference is. I want to throw every single shot that way. So they build their bag based on discs and how they fly when they throw it that one way. And so what that helps them do is never having to change their form, but they get different flights based on the disc that they're throwing when they throw on that specific angle. And so that's another reason why some players might carry a lot of discs. But the big bag is super helpful for being able to have a disc that covers all of your shots. You really have a lot of flexibility in that and being able to cover all your bases, make sure that you can throw everything, and you have the confidence that there is a disc in your bag, also space for water discs, so on and so forth. Now, small bags. I recently joined the small bag gang. I started disc golf on the small bag gang. I had a bag that maybe could hold like 8 or 10 max. I got it from Academy, and then I slowly upgraded. And now I love this little bag that I have because it is perfect for like the casual rounds or when you just need to play a quick round or you're really working on stuff. And the nice thing about a small bag is that you are forced to learn your discs. You know, the thing about a big bag is that it's possible that you don't get super comfortable with every disc. You don't learn how it's going to react because with 30 or 40 discs, it's hard to throw them enough times to really know what they're going to do every time you throw it. But if you only have 8 or 10 discs, you're going to learn really quickly how the disc reacts to different types of wind, different elevation, how it skips, when it skips. As it starts to beat in and season, you learn all of these things. And having the benefit of being able to learn how your disc is going to react is you get to work with a disc on different angles, from hyzer to anhyzer, different nose angles even, as you're working on adding some stalling shots to your game and that kind of thing. And with the small bag, there's less to carry. It's lightweight. You can move quicker, but it really forces you to get comfortable with the discs in your bag. And if there's anything that I learned from watching Champions Cup this past weekend, it's that when you are so confident in the discs in your bag, there is not a shot you can't make. There were so many holes this weekend where, you know, I'm like, okay, that's going to be a forehand. It's a dog leg right. You're going to throw, you should throw a forehand because it's natural shot shape. But most players on the lead card were throwing backhands on these holes. And it's not like some of them didn't have a forehand or that they couldn't execute the forehand if they really wanted to. It was just so much more comfortable to throw the backhand because they knew exactly what their putters and mid-ranges were going to do and how the turnover shot had a gentler turn to it than a forehand does on having the fade and how those the rotation and how those discs fly. So, but you don't, now obviously those players spent a lot of time with those discs. They're obviously pros, and so they're working a lot on that kind of stuff. But you and I can have that same touch and control of a disc when we work with a small bag, when we work with something that doesn't give us a lot of options. And that's the other component to a small bag, is that, hey, you're not going to get a lot of options here. First off, you're probably only going to have maybe 2 or 3 putters, 2 or 3 mids, maybe 1 mid for some people, and then the rest are going to be drivers. And even then, it's like maybe 4. So if you're carrying like 10, you're pretty restricted in that way. And so you're really going to have to get comfortable. You're going to have to learn how they fly, and you're going to really start to see what you're capable of and just how your skill develops and you get comfortable. And the biggest thing with a small bag is that it takes the confusion out. If you have, let's say, 1 or 2 putters in the bag, chances are you have 2 putters that are going to do different things. One's going to be probably more of a straight flyer and one's going to be more overstable. All right, so you have a hole coming up. Let's say it's 220 feet. It's a straight shot down the middle. What are you going to throw? You're going to throw your straight putter. Now, if you're not confident in throwing that putter straight 200, 220 feet, now's the time to learn. And the thing is, you can always throw another disc and like work it in that way, but you start throwing faster discs and you start having to worry about skips and that kind of thing. So it's like, okay, the logical decision is to throw the straight putter. And so it takes a lot of confusion and decision making and critical thinking out of it, because you don't have a lot of options to choose from. And so that's been something that's been really cool as I've been playing for the last week with a small bag, and just really, I already layered my molds. That was always my preference in building my bag. And so I didn't have a lot of molds, but I would have more discs. But this is like, okay, I need to really choose which ones I want in the bag, because I can't have like all different stabilities of the same. I got to choose one of them. And so that has been a super helpful, experience in just learning like what I'm capable of, how I want to throw, that kind of thing. And I want to share all of that to say that today I had a pretty big disc golf win. It was pretty exciting. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it just because there are other things I want to get to. But I played Liberty Park today, and it's a 20-hole or it's 10-hole layout, but with 2 tee pads and moving pin positions, which is cool. You could play a 20-hole layout. So I did that, and I've started working out again. I've worked out 3 of the last 5 days, and technically 4 or technically every day for the last 5 if you count disc golf as a workout too. So I started my round, and it was fine. It was like a couple pars, but then I had a triple bogey, and it was just like for a couple reasons, but the biggest reason is just like putting was really hard. Putting is really hard when you start working out again, because putting is all about that touch and consistency. And also when you're dealing with soreness, and when you're, just dealing with soreness, it's really hard to get into that rhythm. But one of the things that was so nice is that my drives were consistent. Every hole I was getting better with my timing, because now throwing 2 while being sore is a totally new experience for me. And so the first 10 holes were a big learning experience. I went a bunch of pars, a triple bogey, a bogey, and I think 1 birdie or something like that. And then like the back 10 was pretty much a clean sheet of like all pars and birdies. And so that was really cool, because I saw like the first 10 holes was really like this warm-up stage, getting used to throwing with this soreness. But the biggest win for all of this is not just like, hey, I started, doing other exercise again and I'm learning all that, but it was the 20-hole layout requires you to be on your game. And my putting percentage was so low. It was so low that like I'm too embarrassed to say. But because all of those missed putts were like edge of circle, and they were for birdie, pretty much all my par makes were tap-ins. And then a lot of my birdies were also tap-ins. And so that putting percentage didn't have a whole lot of opportunity as the round went on to rise. But hole 20, I was sitting at even. And I was like, okay, this is a chance to get under par. This is a hard layout. Especially as the greenery has grown in, and now some of the fairways are even tighter, or like if you missed your line just a little bit, there's now more in the way that could potentially mess you up. Being able to say like, okay, I'm this close to going under par, I just need a really good drive here. I took my copperhead, threw it on hyzer, but it was too steep a hyzered out early, but it was a little hidden around a bend, so I didn't exactly know where it landed. Well, I ended up being about 36 feet away from the basket, putting slightly uphill. It was maybe, a foot or 2 up in elevation. It was like I had multiple uphill putts all day, and I just kept dropping them low, like hitting the cage. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to make this, I need to commit to getting this disc up in the air. And with putting this pressure on, thinking about these things, putting this pressure on the line, I went and made the putt from 36 feet to finish under par. And not only did I make the putt that counted. But I was like, okay, to prove that it's not luck, I did it again and I made it again. And so it was just one of those things where it's like, yes, like a wave of joy swept over me, but also just like a wave of relief because like, okay, it wasn't just luck that I made the putt. I actually made the correction. I did what I needed to do. And so that was really cool to finish the round under par on a 36-foot putt right in the heart of the chains. It didn't like just sneak over or anything. It was all chains all day. So that was a lot of fun. And so if you have had a recent disc golf win, I want you to go ahead and share it with me. Go ahead and comment down below. And with that, it would also mean the world to me if you guys would leave a review, share this with your friends and family. It means a lot to me, and it tells other people that, hey, you need to listen to this podcast. This show has grown a lot over the last few episodes, and it's all because of you. So I just am so grateful for all of you who listen and watch. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about our disc golf skill. I already kind of alluded to this, but I want us to focus on throwing putters. One thing that I have, that I already knew throwing putters was super important, but watching Champions Cup, it was just like, every person on the lead card could throw a putter and throw it well. And I'm not even going to get into the whole like throwing with a putter is how you improve your form and that kind of thing. That's not the angle that I'm coming at with this. The angle that I'm trying to teach myself and to teach you is that by throwing a putter, you are able to score really well on a disc golf course. Yes, it helps you with your form, but there are things that you learn throwing a putter that you're not going to get when you throw other discs. And also, there are things that happen with a putter that don't happen with other discs. For example, if you're watching Champions Cup, or you're playing a wooded course, think about when you hit a tree, what happens? Well, if you throw a putter or even a mid-range, the rounded nose, right? It'll deflect off the tree. But have you ever noticed that the deflection from a putter or mid-range is never as drastic as a driver? And that's because the shape of the nose, the pointiness of a driver, it's going to deflect a lot harder. And so you're going to have much bigger skips and deflections off trees and poles and walls and fences. Whereas with a putter or even a mid-range in this case, the damage, so to speak, is going to be a lot less. So throwing a putter is really going to coach you on hitting your lines a lot better and a lot more cleanly. And it's going to show you how you can have so much more control with a disc, throwing it on anhyzer, flat, and hyzer. But even more than that, and this is something that I've been working on recently, all of those things are true. And I think throwing a putter is a great skill because it helps with form, deflection off obstacles. You can learn different angles. But the biggest thing that I have learned and realized myself is that when all those things start happening and you start getting better form, you start getting more comfortable throwing a putter, you start realizing that you can throw a putter really, really far. And it's way easier to control. When those things start happening, you can throw a putter sometimes just as far as your mid-range or your fairway driver, but with much more control. And so throwing a putter unlocks a whole new level of your game. And so how can you kind of get in this habit? Well, first, paring down your bag. So going to a small bag could help because it's going to reduce your options. If that's not an option and you don't have a small bag that you can use, or you don't want to buy a small bag, I totally understand that. What you can do is go do a putter only round. And you don't have to, like just bring one putter. So like I have a couple putters in the bag, mainly an armadillo, a bullet, and a copperhead is my putting lineup right now. And they all do different things and they all feel different in the hand. For you, it might be, an AVR or a Judge or a Luna. And then, a lot of people throw a Zone or an AVR X3 or a Toro or something like that. Maybe you're putting with a Nomad or an Envy or an Atom. Whatever your putting lineup is, if you want to get really good at throwing putters, just take that slot out of your bag. If it's 2 or 3 discs, just carry them with you. You really don't even need to have a bag for that. And just work on throwing them. Now, obviously, you want to do this in a field. That's a great way to learn. But it's also a great way to learn how to throw putters out on the course. And here's why. Let's say you go to course A and your average score is +5. And that's like throwing drivers and mid-ranges too, right? So you throw +5. Now you go and take your putter only setup and you play and you throw +7. And it's like, wait, I hardly played worse and I only threw putters. And then you go and do it again and then you tie your best or you tie your average of +5. And then you just start working with that. And what you start seeing is that when you go and play with putters at a course and you start comparing your scores, you start to realize that there are times that you are throwing mid-ranges and drivers when you don't need to. And maybe I'm weird. I mean, I already knew that, but maybe I'm weird with this thing in particular, that kind of gives me such a sense of freedom, knowing that it's like, hey, I don't have to throw these other discs. I don't have to be able to throw a 12-speed driver, because if I can throw a 7-speed driver and then I can control my putters and mids, like that is all I need for the game of disc golf to score well at most courses, which is what I've been experiencing for the last couple of months. It's like, cool. That is all I will do. I will be happy about that, plenty happy about that. And so throwing a putter is such a useful skill. I want to encourage you to try it out. Yes, it's going to help you with your form, but there are so many other benefits that come with throwing a putter that you don't necessarily experience throwing other discs. So I hope that disc golf skill was super helpful for you. I want to encourage you to reach out to me on GiveGo if you have any questions. One of the great things about GiveGo is that it's a coaching app. You can send me videos. You can even send me questions. We can message back and forth. And so it's a great way for me to help you on your specific needs. So if you have a need, whether it's learning how to throw putters better, working on form, or you just have a question on building your bag, go ahead and send me a clip on GiveGo today. And if you use code RUGGIERO, you can get a free first coaching session. And so that's really exciting. So go ahead and check that out. As of right now, it is only available on iOS. Just wanted to let you know. But let's go ahead and let's talk about Champions Cup really quick. We've recapped a lot of it already. So I just really want to go ahead and run through basically the results. All right, we've talked about Kristin Tattar. It basically was her show. We talked about Isaac, just so clean. I am so happy for him. Being a Georgia boy, he was able to win, I think, his first major title or first Disc Golf Pro Tour event even. And obviously this was a major, but that, and in his home state. Now, Appling isn't like his hometown or anything. I think it's a few hours away, but still, just he grew up playing in Georgia Woods. So just super happy for him. Can't wait to see what the rest of the season looks like. So let's go ahead and let's run through the results. And we will start with FPO. So we had Kristin Tattar. The final scores are even crazier than I remember. Kristin Tattar finished in first at -27. Owen Scoggins in second at -13. That's a 14-stroke win. Kat Murch and tied for third with Katrina Allen and Haley King at -11. So second to third was only 2 strokes. Holland Hanley in sixth at -8. Jessica Weiss in seventh at -7. A two-way tie for eighth with Sarah Hokum and Henna Blomroos at -6. It was great seeing Sarah Hokum. She's a great woods player. She performed really well this tournament. And then in solo 10th, Ella Hansen at -2. So the top 10 spots, there's a 25-stroke swing or difference, but there's only an 11-stroke difference between second and 10th. So it was just, it was insane. It was absolutely insane. All right. MPO was a little bit closer. We had Isaac at minus 40 in first place. That's just wild. And then we haven't talked about him a whole lot. He hasn't played a lot, but tied for second, we had Eagle McMahon and Nicholas Antala at minus 35. So good to see Eagle. Nicholas Antala has been one of my favorite players. He's a top 10 favorite player of mine. He's from Europe. Him and Jakub Semerad. He's from the Czech Republic. Nicholas Antala is from Finland, I believe. Two of my favorite European players and top 10 favorite players. Awesome. He had a great tournament. We didn't even really touch on him a whole lot and just discuss what his round was like, but he played so well. Unfortunately for him, it was another tournament where he finished in second and he was so close to winning. So they were in second at minus 35. Fourth place, Silas Schultz at minus 34. Tied for fifth, Matty O and Mason Ford at minus 30. Tied for seventh, we had a four-way tie. Aiden Scott, Chris Clemens, Gannon Burr, and Vino Makala at minus 28. And so we had a 13-stroke difference between first and seventh, which is just crazy. But that is just how well Isaac Robinson played. Super happy for him. Congratulations to Isaac. He played a great tournament and he just did really, really well. Super happy for him. I hope that he continues with this confidence and this great playing the rest of the season. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the Jonesboro Open. A quick little preview. Jonesboro Open is normally at the Disc Side of Heaven disc golf course in Jonesboro, Arkansas. This is a really cool event. It is a more open course, but we typically have, not every day, but some of the days can be really windy. In years past, they've had some really windy days. And obviously you mix wind and a pretty open course, and you have some for some interesting coverage, some really interesting flights and disc selection. It is one of the few open courses, in my opinion, that is fun to watch. And I think it's because they've done such a good job with making a lot of the holes unique and different. And even though they might be open, there's some elevation play involved. And it just really makes it a fun watch. And it's definitely challenging. This is one of those courses that I think for right now, I love watching them. I don't know that I would particularly love playing a course like this, similar to Goat Hill, because it's just open and it's long, and it's just like, that to me is not the most fun kind of disc golf. I prefer a more wooded course, which is why like WR Jackson and IDGC, those courses there's 3 courses there, like I would go to those before I would go play in Jonesboro or play Disc Side of Heaven. But really cool course. I always enjoy that coverage. It's a lot of fun to watch. The players are always amped for it because this is a tournament where they can really rip on some discs, and especially with wind, you'll see some flippy discs for the tailwind, and then you'll see some beefy overstable discs for the headwind. So just a really, really cool event. I like it a lot. I can't wait to watch coverage this weekend. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We can go ahead, though, and do our Grip 6 picks for the Jonesboro Open. We'll do 3 MPO, 3 FPO like we normally do, and then after this, we will end episode 9. I know this was definitely a longer episode than normal, but thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, everyone. So let's go ahead, and we will go Calvin Heimberg. You know, he didn't play super great at Champions Cup, and I think it's just one of those things where, as he has expressed, for his resume, like, it's reached a point where he has to win majors at this point. Like, he's already won a lot of Disc Golf Pro Tour events. He is a bona fide star in the disc golf world. He just needs to start adding some accolades and titles that are tied to the majors. And so I think because of that, that puts a lot of pressure. It's a self-imposed pressure as well. But I think Jonesboro Open, it's really suited to his game being more open and throwing overstable discs. So I think Calvin, he's performed well there in the past. I haven't given him the nod yet this season, but based on how he played at Champions Cup, I'm going to go ahead and Eagle McMahon, I will add him to my MPO. He seems to be really clicking right now. And I'm going to go and also select Anthony Barella. I think Anthony is overdue for a win. Long overdue. I think he can get it. And an open course like this really suits his style. He has a really consistent game, both forehand and backhand, which is what you need at the disc side of heaven. And so I think Anthony Barella is a great pick. So we got Heimberg, McMahon, and Barella. Let's go ahead and let's look at FPO. No surprise here, Kristin Tattar. Also, no surprise here if I can find her, unless she's not playing. Where is she? Oh, is she not playing? No. Owen Scoggins is not on here. Oh, that is such a shame. Her and Kristin have been my 1-2 punch all season. So now I have to branch out. But I'm going to go Kristin. I'll also go Katrina Allen. She's been playing really well. And obviously, she plays really well in the woods, but she also plays really well on open courses. So I'll pick Katrina. And then for someone with her power and just her consistency, we'll go Holland Hanley as well. So FPO, we got Tattar, Katrina Allen, and Holland Hanley. And then MPO again, Heimberg, McMahon, Barella. We're going to save my picks, lock them in. Tiebreaker, I was so, I guess such a low number for Champions Cup. I always forget to look and never take the time to look at what previous years have won. We'll do 50. That's probably too low because everybody just loves to score super high apparently, but that's what we'll go with. We'll go with 50 as a tiebreaker. I've never come close to needing a tiebreaker, so I'm not too worried about that. But I got my picks. If you got your picks, go ahead and join my Discord server so that you can share your picks there. I share my picks every week. A couple other people do as well. It's always a good time talking in there. But that is all for episode 9. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. I really appreciate it. And as always, I want to encourage you to go and take some time this upcoming week and teach someone disc golf, encourage them, give them support, give them some coaching, help them, and have fun. And then also for yourself, in having fun, make sure you get out and play. I think a lot of the country is going to be experiencing some beautiful weather this upcoming weekend, so make sure you get out and play some disc golf. It's great exercise. It's great fun. Do it with some buddies. I know I am playing with some friends this weekend, and I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome. I will definitely recap that next week. That'll be a good time. And that's all I have, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, have a great round.